I'm Rita Kakati-Shah. I'm your host for the Uma Show. Welcome to your one-stop journey for feeling empowered. We're a platform for change. We build confidence. We are your voice. We want you to be bold, be you, be Uma. Today, we're exploring enterprising women, and I'm so excited to be joined by our goddess of go-getting, Vandana Saxena Poria, who is an award-winning serial entrepreneur in Pune, India. Welcome, Vandana. It's lovely to see you again.
So nice to be here. Thanks, Rita.
So you're a girl from the UK who moved around the world, now living in Pune in India. Walk us through your younger years and how you grew up.
Gosh, so I grew up in the UK in the 70s, and it really wasn't, I have to be honest, it wasn't an easy time growing up as an Indian, you know, second generation, so born and brought up in the UK, but my parents moved there in the 60s. And I think it was quite difficult back then. We didn't really have many Indian role models. We didn't really have access. I think we had one cinema in Tooting that kind of every now and again played Indian films, you know.
Yeah.
But my parents were very good about making sure that we understood the culture and everything. But it was kind of like at home, it was one environment, and outside it was another. So I think I did find it tough, and, you know, experience bullying and racism. So it was tough growing up in the UK. I was also a bit of a misfit at school, if I'm really honest. I just had really bizarre interests, and so I found it quite difficult to gel with people. And it's so funny because now I seem like such an extrovert, but honestly, not really. But you know, grew up in the UK, qualified as a chartered accountant in the UK, and then kind of moved abroad.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know, your story actually reminds me a lot of my own, you know, same kind of thing. You felt like a bit of a misfit. I certainly did, you know, the suburb that we lived in. You're obviously South London, I was in North London, but there were very, very similar sort of, I think, aspects to growing up, you know, in the UK at a certain time frame. Yeah, so I understand that totally.
I didn't know who I was. I don't know if you kind of experienced that, but I really didn't know who I was.
It takes time, doesn't it? And it takes time to find it, especially when you feel like a bit of a misfit. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You then went on to study at university later on. Tell us about your studies and then your career path. You mentioned, obviously, chartered accounting. What led to that?
Yeah. Oh, God. I was a nightmare child, right? To be honest, right? I was really bright. My brother was the boffin of the family, went to Cambridge, all of this kind of stuff. And I found it hard to study. And I found out later that I had ADHD, right, which wasn't diagnosed at that time in school. And I had anxiety. And I also found out much, much later that my brain was wired in a different way. I'm what's termed as gifted, but not like as a mathematician or whatever, but I kind of see connections between things. And so school was really difficult, and I learned by drawing pictures and colors and everything. So I didn't do brilliantly academically. But my passion was geography, right? Oceanic geography. And that's what I wanted to study, except when I went and talked to my dad about it, typical Indian dad, he goes, Vandana, you have 3 choices: doctor, lawyer, or accountant. And I was like, no, you don't understand. I really want to do oceanic geography. It's fascinating. Wow. I'm going to learn all about fish and, you know, what happens at the bottom of the oceanic ridges. And my dad goes, did you hear me? Doctor, lawyer, or accountant, you choose. And so I couldn't be a doctor. I was a really staunch vegetarian and didn't agree with, you know, killing animals in any way. So I knew I wouldn't be able to do, like, you know, experiments on animals. So doctor was out. And so it was lawyer or accountant. And my dad goes to me, you know, there's a lot of prejudice for women. There's lawyers, even though I think you could be good. I think accountancy is a safer bet. And I really didn't want to do it. I still didn't want to do it. And I did everything. I edited the arts and entertainments pages of a newspaper. I DJ'd on local radio, but the radio station that I was DJing for went bankrupt. And my dad goes, you know, Vandana, if you had been a chartered accountant, you would have been able to save that radio station. And I was like, oh. So that's how
there you go.
Chartered accountancy just grabbed me. I thought, oh my God, I can learn about business. And understand how it all works, and then I can go and do something really inventive.
Yeah. And there we go, the start of the next chapter in your life.
Yeah,
from the words
yeah,
of your
very
father.
much so.
There we go.
Yeah.
So then how did you go then from being a chartered accountant to
Yeah.
establishing training programs in 15 countries around the world, which is then successfully, you've trained over 1 million people in the sectors that you cover. I mean, that's quite an extraordinary achievement in itself. So
yeah, it's really strange. So I would, after I qualified as a chartered accountant, right, I was intent on going back into radio, right?
Yeah.
That was my dream. But then I got this phone call from a headhunter saying, would you like to work abroad? And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Where? And he said, well, I've got, postings in different places, but it's a really good opportunity in Romania. And I was like, okay. And then, it was mid-90s at that time. And so it was after the fall of the Iron Curtain. And I thought, it'd be quite good to go to a country where, maybe everything didn't work as well. And it'd just be interesting to see what was happening over there. So I literally packed my bags and moved lock, stock and barrel to Romania when I was 25, I think. And I was working for Ernst & Young. And I learned so much while I was with them. I was only with them for, I think, about 18 months or so, because during that time, I spent most of my time teaching my staff what to do and why they were doing it, right? And I found great pleasure in that. I really enjoyed it. And this friend of mine who was also working with me said to me one day, wouldn't it be great to just teach? And I thought, that's a great idea. Yeah, how can we do that? And he goes, we should just set up a training center and, talk to Ernst & Young and others and ask them if they'd, send their people to us. So I talked to my boss and I said, look, I'm really burnt out. We were working crazy hours. And I said, I'd really like to do this for a bit. And if it doesn't work, would you have me back? And he said, yes. So I thought, why not try it? So we opened a training center in Romania and we had Ernst & Young as clients. And then we got Price Waterhouse, and then we got Deloitte, and then we got Unilever and Coca-Cola. And within a year, we had hundreds of students. And this listed company on the UK Stock Exchange, who we were buying textbooks from, called up one day and said, well, what are you doing over there? And remember, this was, Rita, it was kind of startup. This was like late 90s now, 98, I think it was. And I had no idea who this guy on the phone was. We had no Google, Facebook or anything to check. So I just said to him, we're obviously training people. And he said, I wouldn't have thought there'd be a market in Romania. And I was like really gobby at that time. And I just said to him, with all due respect, do you even know where Romania is on a map? Do you know that the population is 24 million and we've got 2 million in Bucharest? And, and he was like, I'd like to come and see your operation. And he came over to see the operation and loved it and made me an offer straight away to buy me out.
Wow.
So, yeah, I know. I mean, it was incredible. And the transaction went through within, 3 or 4 months. And then they said, listen, we're really impressed with what you did in Romania. Do you think you could replicate this in other countries? And I was really gobby at the time. And I just said, yeah, why not? Not thinking for a second that Romania is not like Poland. And, it's like, is the East Coast of the States the same as the West Coast? No, I mean, different personalities. So it was a really amazing learning experience, but opened these centers across Central and Eastern Europe, Romania, Poland, Hungary, Czech, Slovakia, Ukraine, and some others. Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, wow. I mean, there you go. So you just don't know what one thing just led to something else. And it's so remarkable from that one conversation, that one phone call, and now look, amazing.
It is, and this is the one thing that I say, especially to women, take a chance. It might not work, but what is failure, right? Failure is just, it's learning. Yeah. And so why not take a chance?
Absolutely. And you don't know unless you try. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And then that led kind of your journey through that process led you to doing strategic work actually with companies, didn't it? Tell us a bit about that. And then also just leading from that, how that led to your work with helping clients rewrite endings to their challenges. I love that. I'd love to hear all about that. So
yeah. So Let's rewind back to 2005, and I was 7 months pregnant with number two. And I had always, since I was a kid, said that I was going to live in India, right? India was kind of like this home. We used to travel to India. I felt very at home here. And I just felt that India was a nation of 1 billion entrepreneurs that could become 1 billion Unilevers or Tatas or, whatever's. If they had the right education. Very naive, but this is what I felt. And so my thesis was I wanted to come to India, wanted to start training. So I set up a training company in India in 2006, the year after my daughter was born. We had, a lot of ups and downs in that business. We went through the crisis that happened in the, sort of around 2007 and stuff. But the thing that really struck me, Rita, was that people in India were so brilliant at passing exams, but somehow they couldn't take that knowledge all the time and apply it easily to other work situations, right? And so I started to look at, why is it that my ex-husband's family come from the villages in Gujarat, and within one generation in the UK, they've gone on to do amazing things like go to Durham, go to Imperial, go to the States, do startups. And yet their family in Gujarat, they're still in the villages. Why does that happen? So that's what really kicked me off on this idea of what's going on in our minds.
Right.
And I started doing quite a lot of research in this area, and noticed that either people had to be taken out of their environment to a completely different environment where they had different norms, and then they seemed to do really well, or they had to be shaken in their environment, and then they would do different things, right? So I started looking at that, and that's what led me to, this idea of how do you rewrite, it's to do with an area called social cognition and effective neuroscience. And it's kind of a boundary between those areas where you look at what's stopping people and you give them a safety net and you give them an area to play and say, just try it.
Yeah, I love that. And actually kind of reminds me a lot of the work that I do with Uma as well, because we work a lot on confidence and self-doubt and sort of that limiting factor that one day you feel you can do it. And it's just that belief that takes you to the next level. And another day you just feel like there's something there. And that's exactly what it is. I love exactly what you're just talking about there. And then going on from that, you're actually known as the human alarm clock.
Yeah.
What is that? Tell us more.
So it comes from this work that I do, which is kind of like cognitive gaming. I kind of game people. There's a really, I think he was one of the most iconic gurus of advertising in India, a guy called Alec Badamsi. And if you've ever seen Gandhi, Attenborough's Gandhi, he played Jinnah in Gandhi. And I met him, and he just used to say to me, and in fact, I've written a book with him, which is coming out next year. He passed away, unfortunately, a while ago, but this is kind of coming out. And he used to say, Vandana, whenever you come to see me, you just wake me up. You're like an alarm clock. So that's where the human alarm clock came from. It was, kind of Alex saying to me, this is what you do, and this is what you're best at. And that's what I try and do. I try and wake people up and get them to see things differently. And it's what you said, Rita, it's that work on confidence, isn't it? If you can just find that, sort of crack where you're willing to give it a shot, so much happens.
Absolutely. And, people do have that inside them. It's not like you're just reinventing it. They have it. Yes. It's almost like you're helping them discover what they already have. And I think that's the beautiful part when that theory, that realization actually comes out. It's like an incredible kind of firework moment, I think,
exactly.
So you've co-authored books, obviously, one coming out next year, but you've also given several TED Talks as well. And you were actually one of the youngest females to be honoured by Her Majesty the Queen with the Order of the British Empire, the OBE, for services to trade and investment. That's incredible. Just wow. Tell us about your recognitions and what was it like meeting royalty?
So I was one of the youngest female Asians to get the award, and the honour, and I really had no idea it was coming. Honestly, it was like a ball out of the blue. I've been doing a lot of work with the UK government on trying to raise the profile of the UK in India. So I set up the British Business Group in Pune, and I was on the board of the UK India Business Council. And I helped organize some really high profile conferences. So yeah, I was given this honor. I was just gobsmacked when I got it. And I've really been fortunate over my life to meet royalty a few times. So I met Prince Charles for the first time, I think in the late 90s in Romania, actually, because I was one of the only, I think I was the only Indian woman in Romania in business. And so there'd been this dinner. So I'd met him then. And then I also, I'm a trustee of a global leadership organization called Common Purpose that does a lot of work with the Duke of Edinburgh. But I have to tell you, just going to Buckingham Palace and taking my parents there, right? It was just such an amazing, humbling experience. You wouldn't believe this, Rita, but when you go in, everyone knows your name. So they're like, good afternoon, Mrs. Poria. Congratulations on your honor. And you're just like,
oh, amazing.
It was really, really quite incredible and very humbling.
Oh, very special. I mean, I did the Duke of Edinburgh Award scheme, actually. So I got to meet the Duke way after as well, but that was a very brief encounter. But I love the stories, and what you've done is amazing. So yeah, totally well deserved there. So obviously you are very accomplished, and it can't have been easy along the way. Can you share a challenge or two that you faced and how that impacted you?
Okay, so you know, I'm really glad you asked that question, because I think the media is generally really good at celebrating all the overnight successes that actually took decades in the making. And there's a lot of pain on the journey. You know, the initial ones, just, I remember being in a car when I was a kid and skinheads coming and surrounding the car and shaking it and saying, Paki, go home. Right. So there are incidences like that really shake you, really shake your confidence. Obviously, I've faced racism in other places. When I was in Romania as well, I had this guy spit at me and call me Tsigane, which means gypsy. And I just looked at him and I said, "Nu sunt Tsigane, sunt Indianka," which means I'm not a gypsy, I'm Indian. And then he just changed, like, just forget what I just said. Oh, wow, India, that's amazing. And he started singing a Raj Kapoor song. So it's kind of like,
oh my gosh.
I just found those kinds of things really difficult. I mean, when I was running the international division of the listed company, I made so many mistakes. I went for growth, you know, going wide and trying to get into as many markets as possible and not watching the bottom line, which is something, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you know this, you've got to watch that bottom line. You know, not recruiting the right people at the right time because I was maybe insecure and worried that people were going to be better than me. You know, I've made all those mistakes, and I've had Me Too experiences. You know, the one thing that I would say out of all of them, though, is you have a choice. You can either be a victim, or you can say, right, I'm learning from this. I'm not going to let this happen again. And I think I've always been that learner.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think that's what you've just said is so crucial to anybody to progress, because everybody has challenges of some sort in life. But there is a difference with how you react. You know, we can't always control what we get scared, but we can control our reactions. So either you sort of take it and you call up in a ball, that victim mentality you just spoke about, or you think, you know what, I want to do something about this, or yes, it does hurt you, no one's going to deny that, but what am I going to do about it? How can I better myself and move forward from this? So I totally resonate with that. Exactly. Yeah.
I agree with you. I also think you do need time to grieve about these things as well. I don't think you can just pick yourself up and just get going. I mean, it took me years to get over some of the things that have happened. And I think sometimes as women, I don't know about you, Rita, but I'm very hard on myself. I'm my own worst enemy more than I'm my own best friend.
Oh yeah, we are very critical. So we're perfectionists by nature. And that's part of the pressure we put on ourselves ever since a young age. We've been doing it, you know. So did you actually face issues because you were a woman and one of color? And what did you do about that, if so?
Oh gosh.
Several,
Yes.
maybe.
Yes, just
Where do
like
you
in
start?
so many places. But it wasn't just, you know, the funny thing is when you get into understanding bias, you suddenly notice there are so many other isms apart from the sexism. I mean, I faced casteism, I faced ageism, positionism. I mean, you name it, I faced it. You know, because I got promoted at such an early age to being the CEO of the international division, people wouldn't take me seriously in meetings. They didn't think I knew what I was doing. And it was exacerbated because I was female, I was Asian, and I looked a lot younger than I actually was, right? So yeah, I mean, I've faced a lot of it. And, you know, the thing that I would say is, I think movies show the happily ever after, and life isn't happily ever after. Life is a roller coaster. And I think the sooner we realize that it is a roller coaster and we can just hold on and go with it. So, you know, what did I do about it? Quite honestly, I have this little technique that I call the LCD, which is the lowest common denominator. So if I've got a problem, if I'm feeling a challenge with anyone, I'll just really gently ask questions and try and find something that I have in common with this person. And I've just found that really alters the relationship so much. So that's my secret. That's what I do. And I don't do it manipulatively. I just do it because I'm genuinely curious about people. And so, you know, often if somebody is being nasty to you, they're not made that way. They've become that way because something's happened to them. So, you know, just like we want people to cut us slack, we should cut others slack.
Yeah. You know what? Everything you said just resonates so much. Even when I was younger and I used to get called, you know, all sorts of sort of names and had those situations, same thing. I think, well, they're doing that because of a background or a different sort of understanding or fear that they have. So I used to just end up in conversations with them, initially agreeing with them with certain things about, okay, I understand if that would happen, that would make you feel that way. I'd be frustrated too or whatnot. And then we just used to chat, and I ended up becoming friends with my aggressor, so to speak, and diffusing. And that's how I got into my negotiation work, because there is a way of empathizing. But before you do that, you have to understand, but there has to be a genuine desire to do that.
Absolutely.
At the moment, I'm doing so much stuff where people are like, you know, it is, yes, you do need to feel empowered. What I do is women's empowerment, but there's a way of doing it. There is a difference between feeling empowered and acting too entitled. So it's a very much like you versus me, and one is right, one is wrong, and they're the only two outcomes. I'm like, that is not life. That is not actually going to get you anywhere in the run. Moving on though, tell us a bit about your family life and what do you like to do in your spare time?
So I have 2 gorgeous kids, right? Actually, you know, that's really unfair to say that. I actually have 5 children, if I look at it in terms of, I have a dog as well. So she's definitely one of my kids. But my son, Jay, is turning 17. My daughter Zara just turned 15. Trixie, the dog, is 9 going on 10. And then I have these 2 adopted daughters who are kind of like in their early 20s. And like they've been with me, they've working on various projects with me. And so I consider them all my family. But yeah, my kids are just, I would say, my biggest teachers, actually. I think it's really wrong of us to say that as parents, we teach kids. No, I think I've learned more from my kids than I think I've ever taught them. You know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know what? It's funny you said that, because people, you know, talk to me and say, hey, what's it like to be a CEO? And I said, it's funny you said that, because ultimately my kids are the CEO and COO. I work for them. So
that's a really good one.
Yeah, because everything I'm doing, my mission, my vision, everything ultimately is about how does it impact the next generation? What will this do for them, their legacy? What can I do that one day will actually positively change their lives that they can take forward? So ultimately that's what it's about, I think, anyway. So
yeah, no, and I agree with you, absolutely. And my daughter, Zara, she's like a great footballer. And when she was 13, because she's really good at it, she became captain of the under-16 team. Wow. And she came home and she was in tears and she was like, oh, all these girls are older than me and they're never going to listen to me and all of this. And I said, they won't listen to you if you talk like that. Why do you think the coach made you the captain?
Yeah.
you know, when she got that he'd made her the captain because she was really good, she could then confidently go out and say to them that, listen, I may be younger than you, but I know that do you think I can teach you? Because I think I can. And they ended up doing really well and, you know, winning tournaments. So yeah, spending time, really sharing time with my kids is like one of the most important things for me. But apart from that, as you know, I'm writing this really crazy set of visionary fiction books about a teenager who gets into an institute in outer space. And the purpose of the institute is to find balance in the universe. So yeah, really heavily working on that. I wanted to create, I talked about cognitive gaming. I wanted to create different worlds where the rules were different, right? And so people could explore what it could be like in, say, a female-dominated world, or a world that was dominated by children, where what the children said went. You know, I wanted to kind of explore different worlds, and I'm doing that through the books.
Love that, and can't wait to see what happens next. So yeah, brilliant, brilliant. Before we let you go, what words of advice would you give to any young girls out there wanting to follow in your footsteps?
Wow, and yours, and all the other fantastic women that you've had on your show. I think the first thing that I would say, Rita, is become comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Because that's growth comes from being uncomfortable, right? And the sooner we kind of learn that, if we're in our comfort zone, we're not learning. So I think be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Second one that we said before was we are perfectionists, right? And I think we need to learn that we are work in progress, and we will be work in progress until the day we leave this planet, right? And we shouldn't forget that. And it's okay to be work in progress. And I think the last one that I would say is, you know, companies often talk about key performance indicators. But as you said, it's about your confidence. It's about your self-limiting beliefs. Forget KPIs and move on to KJIs, which are your key journey indicators. So what is it you want to achieve on your journey, right? I would say those are things that you know, if you really focus on the journey, focus on what you value, what's important to you, you will do really, really well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think more people need to do that, just literally focus on themselves, because we take too much precedence right now in what others see, what they perceive, rather than what is it we actually want to do. I love that. Thank you so much, Vandana, for sharing your incredible journey with us today. Vandana Saxena Poria, award-winning serial entrepreneur. And thank you to our viewers for joining us on this empowerment journey. We want you all to embrace that inner goddess of go-getting. We want you to be bold, be you, be Uma.